transformations coach's dream, her baby, and we've been doing it together and we enjoy doing this. Part of our story is we are part of a healthy living community known as the Juice Plus community. Juice Plus has been around since 1993. However, the company began as NSA in 1970. So we are 50, wow, 4 years young, and we are still growing and thriving. We were the company that introduced smoke detectors in the US in 1970. Then we went into air filtration and water filtration. And then in 1993, with a divine connection between Smokey Santillo and the Juice Plus crew, we put produce into capsules. How cool is that? So now we have a very sleek product line. We love what we get to do every day because we inspire healthy living and we watch people's lives transform just by adding one simple change. Carla, my friend, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see all of you here. And um, as we go forward this evening, I want to just share my screen once I can find it. Once I can find the controls, and we'll be talking today about autoimmune conditions. So let's see if I can share my screen. And how many of you, while I'm doing that, how many of you have or know someone with an autoimmune condition? If you know someone with an autoimmune condition, would you um, put a 3 in the chat? Okay, thank you. Now, many of us have experienced either signs and symptoms of autoimmune conditions, and I'm really glad that we get this opportunity to take a look at what's involved in having an autoimmune condition. So I don't know if you can see my screen yet. I'm trying to share it. Can somebody unmute and let me know if you can see it?
I cannot see your screen yet, Carla.
Okay, thank you. I'm working on it. So let's minimize that and let's see if we can. Okay, can anybody see it yet?
No, I cannot see it yet.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to try one more time to share. And then if I can't, I will just talk through the information because the information is good, whether or not you can see it. So let's see. One more time.
You got it.
Okay, great. So I want to remind everyone that here at Doctor's Orders, we try to talk about things that impact the lives of ourselves, our friends, our families. And I've got a secret. I really want to see you become a health ambassador in your community. So when I share this information, I really hope that you're going to be able to share it with others. Now, because this information is just for your education and information, and so that you can share with others, I want to remind you that it doesn't replace the advice or the counsel of your medical professionals. They're part of your team. So I want you to make sure that you don't make changes to prescribed medications or to procedures without discussing your intentions and asking questions with your medical team. So when we're thinking about autoimmune conditions, I like to go to the experts, and Dr. Anna Maria Orbai at Johns Hopkins Arthritis Center describes autoimmune diseases when body's natural defenses, they can't tell the difference between our own cells and foreign cells. So what that causes is the defense systems of the body actually um, attack normal cells accidentally. Now, you can think of your immune system, and we'll talk a little bit more about the immune system in a few minutes. You can think of it the way we think of an army. And in an army, you have a base. And you would think like the tissues would be the base, whether it's the skin, the lymph nodes, the bones, the blood. And then you also have officers, warriors, your army, the actual people. And that would be the cells, or the mainly white blood cells. Now, each of these um, each of these individuals who are part of this army, they have to have tools. Think of their machines, their cars, the guns that they may use, whatever tools they use to fight their wars. That would be something called antibodies, which are actually short chain proteins that have a specific shape and function. And of course, if you have tools, you need ammunition. And there are special chemicals called cytokines. So it's like a big army that your body is using, and it's all about protection. Now, there are many different types of autoimmune diseases. I'm only going to name a few. You may have heard of Graves' disease, or dermatomyositis, or uveitis, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, Addison's disease, SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, or multiple sclerosis, or pemphigus, any one of these. And if you know or see a disease that you're familiar with, put a 4 in the chat, because you may know someone with a specific autoimmune condition. Now, I put this slide up here because a lot of people talk about omegas and the role of omega-3 and omega-6. And the reason I'm putting this slide up here is because I want you to realize that it's not clear-cut and simple. We usually think of omega-3 fats as being anti-inflammatory, as indicated on this, if you follow the line of green over here. And we think of omega-6s as being pro-inflammatory when you follow the line of blue. But there are some anti-inflammatory products that are products of omega-6s. So it's not clear cut. The thing is to have the right balance. And when you have enough omega-3 fats in your system, then the tendency is to use those and to block the conversion of omega-6s into the pro-inflammatory and allow the production of anti-inflammatory. Because you may have heard about blends of omegas. I know of an organization that has an omega-3, 5, 6, 7, and 9. And you may be wondering, well, why does it include omega-6? Because when you have in nature, when you have these different omega fats, the omega-3s, as long as you have sufficient of them, they block the pro-inflammatory products of the omega-6 and allow the omega-6 to focus mainly on producing anti-inflammatory products. So I had that question, and so I wanted to answer it for some of you. Now, where do these cells that I talked about, the immune cells, come from? Most of the cells that we know about come from the bone marrow, and they're usually white cells, and they produce the antibodies that are made specifically to connect with substances that the body that are foreign to the body. So you have cells and you have antibodies that react or connect with foreign substances. But it's not just in the bone marrow that we have immune cells. They are all over the body. This diagram shows you collections of immune tissue that we know as lymph nodes. And in those lymph nodes, there are collections of immune cells that are constantly filtering through and contacting and touching all the white blood cells and all the yellow, red blood cells that flow through the body and producing cells that can travel throughout the body to make sure that cells are behaving correctly. Now, some of these cells, these white immune cells, can gobble up foreign particles. Some of them produce antibodies, as I said, and some of them break down the compounds that they find. And now we know that the gut is also a major contributor. We've known for a long time that there was special pockets in the gut of immune cells. But now we know that even the gut microbiome, the bacteria in the cells, participate in immune function as well. Now, for those who have been classically trained, they'll know that there are different stages in immunity. There's innate immunity that is our first line of defense, and it just attacks anything that is new and foreign. But there's also adaptive immunity, where after you've had an initial response, your body actually creates memory cells that can remember what was attacked, and specific antigens, specific proteins are produced to attack the compounds, the proteins, or the foreign objects that were found in our body. Now, that all sounds fascinating and amazing. There are whole sections of medicines devoted of the study of medicine devoted to the study of the immune system, and that's known as immunology. But prevention is always better than cure. So what can we do? The ordinary person who doesn't know as much as an immunologist about all the different activities of the body, what can we do? Well, we can minimize triggers. Many people can identify things that are triggers. I went into a location recently and my eyes started itching, and then I started coughing. So I recognized that dust in that location was a trigger. So we want to minimize trigger. Hormonal. Many of us have noticed that during different cycles, we have maybe stronger responses to triggers. And so when we have our hormonal function normalized, and it doesn't mean that going through cycles isn't normal. I'm just saying that if we have challenges in our immune function, our hormonal function, if that's normalized, we often can minimize autoimmune situations. Diet. Now that we understand the role of the gut microbiome, we realize that our diet affects the gut microbiome, and the gut microbiome protects and even improves the integrity of the gut wall itself, so that reduces leaky gut. Now, why is that important? If small particles can pass through a leaky gut and get into the bloodstream, the immune system will mount a defense to get rid of those particles. And the fewer particles that can cross over that are not supposed to be there, the better it is for our immune system. Of course, if you get exposure to an infection, the body mounts a defense, and that sometimes can lead to the body's immune system staying on high alert longer than it should. A person who has allergies and asthma, that may actually be a sign that their immune system is on high alert and being overworked. Um, Obesity and overweight. People who, the research shows that there's an increase in autoimmune conditions in overweight and in obesity. Now, it doesn't mean that they are that one is responsible for the other, but there is a trend that there's an increase. So, um, restoring our weight can also minimize the things that we do to restore our weight can minimize our exposure or the frequency of autoimmune attacks. Vaccinations have been shown to be a trigger, and of course, genetics. Now, when we talk about genetics, sometimes we feel as though we're helpless victims. And I want to share with you that you're not a helpless victim. There are actually parts of the world where the autoimmune conditions either do not exist or are so rare that it's really a surprise to us. And you ask yourself, well, if there are regions where people do not have autoimmune diseases and those people travel to the United States and their frequency of autoimmune diseases increases, have their genetics changed? Well, that's a great question. What we've begun to realize is that the food that we eat can protect our genes. And that's a science called epigenetics. It impacts the way our genes express themselves. So that even if we have a tendency, a genetic propensity to go in the direction of having a particular disease, the food that we eat can impact whether or not those genes get expressed. So that is the study of epigenetics. So what can we do? We can get rid of dietary triggers. And here are some of what the researchers say are the most significant. Dairy. Now, I know you may not have thought of dairy as a trigger for autoimmune conditions, but the data is pretty much very clear that when dairy is introduced into the diet of very young children, children that have a predisposition can actually develop type 1 diabetes. Animal products. Countries where animal products are used more than 10% of the calories, that you find an increase in the rate and the risk and the occurrence of autoimmune conditions. After antibiotics, we can see an increase. People who have been exposed to antibiotics can see an increase in the population of autoimmune conditions. And now we have a better understanding of why. When we take antibiotics, especially oral antibiotics, the gut microbiome is impacted by it, and that means that there's a loss of the good bacteria as well as the bad bacteria when we take antibiotics. And those good bacteria, they help maintain the integrity of the gut wall itself, but they also contribute to our immune function. The use of alcohol is also associated with a rise in the risk of autoimmune disease. And in some sensitive individuals, the presence of gluten in high concentrations can also be a dietary trigger. So I want to tell you the story of two people who have actually discovered that what I just shared with you is true. Dr. Saray Stanzik was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She went from being the doctor on call in the emergency department and collapsed one night and was taken to get an MRI, and they was diagnosed that night with multiple sclerosis. Now, because of her medical training, she knew she had to get medical help, and she followed her doctor's instructions and took the medications that were prescribed, because he warned her that her decline, although it wouldn't be stopped, would be more rapid if she didn't take the medications. But then in 2003, although she was using a walker and a cane, in 2003, she discovered that nutrition may play a role in her health and in her specific condition. You see, as a medical doctor, she had never been trained on the role of nutrition in preventing or slowing or maybe even reversing disease. She's changed her diet, added more fruits and vegetables. She actually went to the place where less than 10% of all the calories she ate came from animal products. So she was at least 90% of her nutrition came from fruits, vegetables, grains, peas, and beans. And 2 years later, it didn't happen overnight, but 2 years later, she began to be aware of the fact that she was improving. She did not need her walker as much. And 5 years later, in 2010, she completed a marathon. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to give a shout out to Dr. Saray Stanzik. I actually met her at a conference and had a short conversation with her. And she's making a difference in a lot of medical colleges, sharing lifestyle medicine with young doctors so that they too can learn about the role of nutrition in reducing the risk, in slowing the progress of, and in some cases, reversing disease. And she is now, according to all the markers, can be considered recovered. And another physician, Dr. Brooke Goldner, was diagnosed at about age 16 with lupus. She had severe symptoms. She had kidney failure. She was on a transplant list. She had drugs to support her kidney function. And she was told that she would not live long and that she'd never be able to have children and that she should have a stress-free life. And then she went to medical school. That was not exactly the prescription that was given to her. Medical school is nothing if not stress-free. Anyway, she completed her medical training, and at the end of her training, she fell in love. And the young man was a physical trainer. And she wanted to wear a beautiful slim dress for her wedding. She told him that she didn't know if she would live long and um, that she might he might have to take care of her. And he told her that a few short years with her would be better than life without her. Isn't that sweet? Anyway, he trained her so that she can get into the dress she wanted. That she also worked on her diet, and within a matter of months, her doctors were amazed. They thought that the results had been mixed up with someone else who didn't have lupus because all of her markers were disappearing. She now is the mother of 2 children and she shares Goodbye Lupus. And you can take a picture of this and get her story and get her recipes for her super nutrition that she helps people. So that's 2 physicians who have found that nutrition can make a difference in an autoimmune condition to the point that neither of them can be diagnosed as having the autoimmune condition anymore. So, what can we do to get healthier? I'm glad you asked because there are some things that we can do. And these are one simple changes. You don't have to do them all at once. If if you feel like you're not being severely impacted by an autoimmune condition, but because I've heard people say, well, I only have a little arthritis. Well, maybe a little arthritis is too much, but there are things you can do. You can drink more water, just like you've seen me drinking water during this presentation. I encourage you to drink 6 to 8 glasses of water. Some people drink a whole gallon a day. A lot depends on your needs, where you are, your activity level, how the temperature, whether it's hot or cold. And you should speak with your physician about the amount of water that is safe for you. The only problem that I have heard about where people say, well, can't you drink too much water? you may be able to drink too much water in a short time. If you're engaged in some kind of strenuous sport for an extended period of time, and then you try to drink a lot of water in a short time, your kidneys may not be able to handle it. But that's the only warning that I have heard. Now, you may know of others. Please feel free to let me know. The other thing is move. The recommendation is that you get started with at least half an hour of walking every day. It can be leisurely walking. We're not talking about trying to run a marathon, but if you want to run a marathon, you can start today. The longest distance starts with the first step. So 30 minutes a day. If you have movement restrictions from your physician, then please speak to them about how you can do some movements that would help promote cardiovascular health, help promote movement in your body, and how you can learn stability and strength exercises that can minimize the risk of falling. And then sleep. It's recommended that you get 6 to 8 hours of sleep, preferably 8. And we may have to use sleep hygiene because many of us either work at night or have schedules that we feel don't allow us to get to bed early. The best times are between 9 and 6 in the morning. So, and of course, it will vary depending on where you are, how close to the equator or how far away, but 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Reducing stress. Now, it's not possible to live completely stress-free. We recently heard about an experiment where a dome was created and people grew plants and tried to live inside the dome. Well, the trees grew rapidly and grew tall, but then they fell over. And they were trying to understand, well, what's happening? Because the trees were not exposed to any wind, the roots did not go down deep. And so the tree, even though the tree was strong and tall, the root system couldn't support it because it had never experienced any stress. So stress-free is not exactly what we're looking for. And that's why we say reduce stress, especially if you're in stressful relationships, stressful jobs. Find ways, whether it's breathing or gratitude, to get started to reduce stress in your life. And then reduce environmental toxins. Now, we may not be able to do a lot about the toxins floating around in the air. And of course, that's why we have a government and we'll be able to vote and we make petitions to reduce toxins in the air, in the water, in the sea, in the land. We can try to get those. But what about toxins in our home? Sometimes we use very powerful toxic chemicals in our homes, and it's really important to take a look at what we're using to clean because we want to minimize those toxins so that you don't find yourself inhaling chemicals, even air fresheners or perfumes that we may use to make our houses smell beautiful. Make sure that they're not becoming toxins when we breathe them in and negatively impacting. Now, especially if you've experienced asthma or allergies in the past, you may want to be really careful about that. And then finally, eat whole food plant-based. What you're asking? Well, what's that? I'm glad you asked. Whole food plant-based eating is when 90% or more of your calories come from fruit, vegetables, whether it's above ground green and colorful vegetables or below ground starchy vegetables, grains. People who have autoimmune conditions need to avoid barley, rye, oats, and wheat. And the oats themselves do not have triggering micronutrients, but sometimes they are processed in facilities that do have wheat or barley or rye. And that cross-contamination can trigger people who have very severe sensitivities to wheat, to wheat proteins. Legumes are peas and beans, as illustrated down below. Water is your main drink. Now, there should be no dairy included in this whole food plant-based eating plan. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Dairy is high fat, and we want to be, you see lower down, that this eating plan has to be low fat. And sometimes people say, well, what about the good fats? If you're looking at your eating plan, you need to try to keep the fat intake less than 10% of your calories. So that means that you're going to have, look at your labels, start turning around things around and looking at the back of the label. And if a serving is more than 3 grams of fat per serving, it's not low fat. I mean, you may still eat it, but it's not low fat. And so you want to focus on bringing as many, eating as many things that are low fat. Dairy is not low fat. It's actually high fat. There are also proteins in dairy products that can be, oh, by the way, the fat in the dairy causes what is called sludging. It slows the blood flow in your arteries. And so high fat products like dairy can actually slow the progression of blood through your body and to your brain. The other thing is the proteins in dairy products, they can trigger immune responses, and they can and also trigger an inflammatory response. So you want to make sure that you avoid dairy. Now, eating this way, fruits, vegetables, grains, peas, and beans, you will have an eating plan that is high in fiber. And this is very important for most of the health conditions that we face. Most of us, if we would just eat a lot of fruits, vegetables, grains, peas, and beans, 90% of our calories, we would start having enough fiber in our diet. So there's no need to count the calories or count the fiber, but once you start doing that, it will help. Now, why does this work? Foods that are high in fiber feed the gut microbiome. The fiber that we can't digest, it's carbohydrates that we can't digest ourselves. The gut microbiome can digest it. And in digesting it, number one, they get healthy and they multiply, but they also produce chemicals that are very good for us. So they actually feed us. So they break down the fiber, and that fiber feeds us. The gut, as we mentioned, is now discovered to be a very significant part of our immune system. In addition, you have a replacement effect. If you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables, grains, peas, and beans, you're not eating some of the triggers that I mentioned earlier. So when we're eating whole foods, as naturally as they are, because some of them have to be processed. I mean, you have to, dried beans, you have to cook them, or rice, grains, you usually have to cook them to some measure, so being processed is not the problem. It is whether it is originally a food and it's not, and it's whole when in its original form. It is satisfying because it's nutritionally dense, even though it is calorie dense. So the density of calories is low. You can eat more and get satisfied. And once you're satisfied at a lower calorie level. So you don't have to count the calories. The more fruits and vegetables and grains and peas and beans that you eat, you're actually eating lower calorie food. It's also low in fat. Now, everything contains a little bit of fat. I've never seen carrot oil, but even carrot cells, because the cells, individual cells, are made up of fat products. So, but eating fruits, vegetables, grains, peas, and beans, it's low in fat. And the fat intake is, when you're eating fat, fat is easy to store. Your body recognizes when you're taking in fat. In fact, one of the research sections I'm going to share a little later, you'll notice that you actually lose the reactivity of your blood vessels after a high fat meal. So the body has a super highway for fat, And that fat is easily stored in the muscle and becomes something called intramyocellular fat. And when we talk about diabetes, this is what will this is the fat that we'll be talking about. Now, high fat meals lead to inflammation and viscosity. Remember, I told you about the sludging of the blood in the blood vessels. And because fat is easy to store, it's easy to store in fat cells, adipose tissue. How many of us know about the fat in our front and at the front, and the fat at the back, and the fat on the arms? It's easy to store, but those cells are not sleeping. They're very active, and they produce pro-inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. So it's like inflammation factories. So reducing the fat in our cells, in our bodies, is actually beneficial and reduces inflammation. And remember, inflammation and autoimmune conditions are connected. Same cells are involved. So what can we do? I believe, remember I told you I had a secret that I think that there's a new health ambassador in town. I think you are the new health ambassador, and I want to empower you to tell your health story. But if you're still in the search and struggle phase of your health story, I want you to know you're in the right place. Because here we will teach you more about health and how to stay healthy and the 6 pillars of health. And if you're serious and you're ready to learn, we can help get you started on a healthy jumpstart. We can help you on a pathway to become a health ambassador where you develop the one simple changes and experience your own transformation and share that with others. We do things like batch prepping with salad in a jar, rice and beans, soup in a jar, and coaching. And I help with the coaching, but there are coaches among us too. Yeah, they're hiding, but they're here and they're able to help you. So may I ask you a couple of questions? What is the cost? If you were going to take a program, what would it usually cost you? You can put a number in the chat. I mean, I've heard of programs that are thousands of dollars a month to join a program to help you with your health. Well, we have a Jumpstart program that is free. You get to buy the food that you want, that you eat, but the program itself is free. It's called Shred 10. And if you're looking for a lifestyle program, not a diet, but something that can make a difference, and we do this every month, so it's you get support and accountability as well as a proven system. You have 10 guidelines, group coaching, free e-resources. When you complete the program, you get a cookbook and you get support, and we have fun. So here are the guidelines. You can take a look at that. And the first Monday of every month, we share the information so that you can jumpstart your healthy living journey. Speak to the person who invited you or text SHRED to 540-686-1312 and we'll get you started. We'll send you the information so that you can order your supplies, you can join the Facebook group, you can get your SHRED guide, and you can be ready for the next one that starts at the first Monday of next month. I also want to invite you to an event that is happening in a few days. So take a picture of the screen. It's called Wows and the Wise. Now, if you're looking at this after the event, we will have other events going on where you can learn more. Just like we're teaching here, there are other people who are qualified to share with you the information that can make a difference. Because what would you do if you knew that there was something simple that could help you jumpstart your healthy living journey? Well, this particular event, Wendy Campbell, she's a registered nurse and she's got tons of experience, whether it was the ER, the OR, and different medical specialties, but she's going to tell us a lot. So I hope that you're taking a picture of the screen and that you will be there. Remember to ask the person who invited you. So once again, If you're serious, we have the Healthy Jumpstart, the Shred Tan. We'll be doing that via Facebook, but I also send out texts every day so that I can keep you motivated and encouraged. We have education for our health ambassadors, and I also offer a free 5-day one-on-one individual health coaching jumpstart. So another question I'd like to ask you, what's the cost of not getting started? What will it cost you to not get started? I mean, all the toxins in the environment are increasing. The food quality is decreasing. That's why they have to put synthetic vitamins and growth hormones and emulsifiers and different things in it to make it more appetizing. And what we really need is phytonutrients, which are the antioxidants that are in fruits and vegetables. And you need even more today than you needed before because of the things that I shared with you. But the researchers all agree that, and the experts, they may have different ideas about how we get there, but they all agree that the most diseases are preventable with good nutrition, and many of them will go even further to say that they can be reduced and in some cases reversed. My favorite, Dr. Michael Greger, he does a presentation, and if you'd like, I would be happy to send you that presentation, where he explains the research behind why he is so excited about food. Another reason why I'm excited about whole food is that we have been told that we can have isolated, concentrated micronutrients that originated in plants, but were produced in a lab. And that that should make us feel better. But the research to support that isn't there. In fact, the research shows that having multivitamins or isolated nutrients has not lived up to our expectation. And it's because we're not really deficient. I mean, we're not deficient in vitamin C. Have you ever met anybody with scurvy, pellagra, beriberi? Not in the United States. As long as a person is getting sufficient calories, they're probably not individual nutrient deficient. What they need is the whole fruit. They need all the thousands of micronutrients working together in something called synergy. You know, this 500 milligram vitamin C capsule represented here has less vitamin C activity than this whole apple, which only has 5 milligrams of vitamin C. Why is that? Because there are 10 other substances that we know of that also have vitamin C activity, and they work together. And so the apple wins out. And if you're interested in finding out how you can bridge the gap between what you're eating and what I've been suggesting, and how that can help you in your journey against autoimmune conditions, then I hope that you will talk to the person who invited you, because they can share with you that although we do not make claims that Juice Plus can cure or treat any disease, based on what I've shared with you today, having a healthy fruits and vegetable concentrate that's supported by individual independent research could be added to your body's journey to healing itself. And so Juice Plus contains 10 different fruit, vegetables, grains, and we have a plant-based omega. It's food, it has a food label. It's made from GMO ingredients. It's vegan, kosher, dairy, and gluten-free. There's third-party certification through NSF. So there are no banned substances. What's on the label is actually in those capsules. And it is the most researched nutraceutical product in the world. Just take a look at all those fruits and vegetables. I don't know about you, but I don't get pineapples every day or beets either. But I do if I take concentrated fruits and vegetables in capsules. And the omegas, that we were talking about earlier on, they don't actually come from fish. You know, the fish don't make it. They eat algae that makes it. So we bypassed the middle fish, went to the algae and 5 other sources of naturally occurring omegas, and we've put them in a plant-based capsule that, and they're not degraded by heat. So this is the best form, other than eating your fruits and vegetables yourself. This is the best way that you can get more omegas. We also have the complete shakes so that you can have a healthy meal on the go. It's not just a protein powder, although it has high quality water washed soy. It's got mushrooms, chickpea powder, alfalfa sprouts, radish sprouts, quinoa, amaranth, pea powder. It is concentrated food, but because it is the fruits and vegetables with the fiber, it has a low glycemic index, it's dairy free, gluten free, and the fiber and protein content is optimal and has even been tested on cancer patients. So, and if you're a serious weekend warrior, we have something for you too. It has a higher protein profile, but the research shows it's good for muscle growth, energy, and muscle recovery. So talk to someone about the Juice Plus Perform, which would be maybe better for you if you're an athlete. And if this is you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then we've got something for you. Juice Plus Illuminate. It's the newest product that we have, and it contains coffee berries and several mushrooms and other herbs that help act as nootropics and adaptogens to provide focus and calm. And that's just amazing. And it's can be taken hot or cold. So where do you see yourself starting? You get to choose. You get to decide whether you want to go all in and get everything. As a friend of mine said, I want everything that you make because I want the best. Or you may want to start a little slower. It's okay. We can help you. So speak to the person who invited you. And if you're interested in growing your own fruits and vegetables, you're concerned about the recalls, then we have for you 2 Tower Gardens, Tower Garden Home and Tower Garden Flex. And we can also share that with you. I couldn't resist. I had to show my towers. um, they're kind of out of control, but that was just in a couple of weeks, and I was able to eat for a whole year off of my tower without having to buy lettuce and basil, etc. So where do you see yourself getting started? I want you to know that we're here for you. You can do something about your health concerns. If you or someone you know has an autoimmune condition, you can start making those one simple changes, and we'll be happy to help you bridge the gap, help support you as you make one change at a time, or to help you with the Shred 10. So put your name in the chat or text free to 540-686-1312, and we can schedule an empowerment session. We can talk with you with a coach. You can have a 3-way call, or you can just get started on that one simple change of adding more fruits and vegetables to your eating. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now and probably try to end our YouTube broadcast, and you'll be able to um, also ask some questions. So let's see. Oh, I forgot to tell you. The only way I know how to stop the YouTube broadcast is to end, is for all of us to jump off and jump back on. Is that okay with everybody? Can we jump out,
Sure.
jump off and jump back on? Okay,
All right. I'm gonna stop the recording.
thank you.
Recording stopped.
Awesome.
All right. And there's no way to end YouTube without,
Not that I know of yet.
we'll have to figure that one out.
Yep.
Okay.
So can you close the room? Because I can't.
You're the hostess with the hostess. All right, let me see. And leave.